Hey there, this is the first episode of We Want to Watch. You're going to notice we're making references to past episodes on The Thing and Eraserhead, but those aren't going to be published because the audio quality is really bad. So our takes on those movies are lost to time. But please enjoy this first episode, and thanks for listening. Do you have any movies coming out that you're like looking forward to?
No, I don't know of any movies coming out. I couldn't name a
That's
single one.
fucking crazy.
Movies aren't my thing.
I know, but like that's like not even one, not even like you don't see ads or anything?
No, no, I think I'm immune to advertising, honestly.
You, first off, you are not immune to propaganda.
Wow.
Secondly, you sound like have you ever seen that tweet that's like I was on a international flight and some guy just sat there, no headphones, no blanket, no pillow, nothing, just his thoughts.
Yo,
That's you.
I do
Like
that
no
sometimes.
movies.
I've done that on flights.
That's crazy.
I
That's
get into the
crazy.
best conversations like that though, because you're essentially locked in there with, at least one other person next to you that you can just grill for like, 4.5 hours, 2 a.m. to 6:30 a.m. What are they gonna say,
What flights have you been taking at 2 a.m.?
Red eyes, generally.
No shit, Sherlock. What but to where and
Um,
when?
I mean, between
And
between
more
Seattle and
importantly, why?
Philadelphia, to get home.
There's a flight from, okay, OPSEC,
Yeah,
but
right. Sheesh.
do you not have a flight during the day? That just seems crazy. Like, why would you go?
I've had some flights during the day. I kind of prefer red eyes because then you can just like continue to stay up and get acclimated to the new time zone, right? If I take a flight during
It's
the
only
day,
three
my day is
hours.
wasted. With the time change, it's more, right?
Okay,
And what if I have a layover?
if you say so. Okay, also, you're grilling people on the flight at 2 a.m.?
Yeah.
You're
Oh,
crazy.
yeah. It's
You,
great.
you're a terrorist.
Oh, I know. I'm on a watch list. I'm on multiple.
Yeah,
No,
you're on people's watch list.
it's great because like you're stuck in there. They can't get away from you. And people are willing to divulge like a lot of themselves to someone that they're only really going to talk to for, just this one time, right?
That's what you think.
Wow. Listen, if I ever see Robert West again, shout out Robert West, then we'll deal with that then, right?
Who the fuck is Robert West?
He was a minister in Alaska. Um, I'm not sure where he lives now, but he was one of the top six players of a mobile phone app um, about planes. I forget the name of it. I think it was like a War Thunder game. Yeah, he was the number one free to play player, which was like a big achievement, and he was top six in the world. Yeah, I'm talking about Robert West. Let's. This is all off topic, right?
So this podcast is called We Want a West, and you know what you could be doing on your red eye flights is watching movies instead. So maybe,
Oh.
write
Hmm.
that down.
I've actually sometimes I'll watch movies that other people are watching, um, and that way I can get like two or three streams of information going at once. I can sort of peek over people's shoulders. And that works out really well until they like, move. And you can't ask them to like move back, right? It's just awkward, right? I can't be like, "Hey, buddy, your shoulder's blocking off half of the Equalizer 2. I really want to see Denzel in frame. Could you just wiggle over a little bit?"
Okay. Well, good to know that I will never ever take a flight with you for fear of public shaming. Um, this podcast is called We Want to Watch. My name's Lane.
My name's Ricky.
And I guess our premise is that we just pick movies that we think we should watch, or that we want to watch, or that we think the other person should watch in benefit of our uh, ongoing film education, I guess?
Yeah.
Question mark? I don't know. Does that sound like a good pitch?
No, yeah. I mean, it's
This is
just
only our third episode and we barely have a name down.
well, it's just what we want to watch, right? I don't think it has to
Fair,
be
okay,
anything more
fair,
than
fair, fair.
that.
All right, fine, 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 fine. I can already tell that we've got juice compared to some of our last couple apps, which is thank God, because those have been rough,
For
buddy.
me, the podcasting is the juice.
All right, cut that out.
Okay,
Telling the
fine.
Craig bot now.
All right.
Um, this week we're watching, or we watched the Grand Budapest Hotel. This was a recommendation of yours,
Yep.
Ricky. I had not seen this movie before, but you were like fully like in the can for this one.
I think it's great. I love Wes Anderson films. Like this is like a proper movie in my eyes. Whatever that's supposed to mean, right?
Yeah, I guess I was kind of not surprised. I mean, I know people like this director. I hadn't really seen any of his movies, and I'll talk about that in a second. But like a joke you've made a couple times while we've recorded this is that you don't fucking know any movies. And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
uh, the fact that you not only like this movie and have seen it multiple times, but like know this director, yeah, I want to hear more about like why and like what your history is with him and all of that and like what it means to you, I guess.
Hey, thank my English teacher. I believe I had him for 10th and 12th grade. And he was a big Wes Anderson guy, or at the very least, he liked a lot of the symbolism that Wes Anderson uses and the way in which he sort of portrays human emotion, I guess. So he used a lot of quotes from Wes Anderson movies, and he would show Wes Anderson movies in class. Um, and I don't know, I really liked them. They just stuck with me.
Okay, so like an English teacher in high school
Yep,
or
yep. I'm not gonna name
nice.
drop him
Okay.
because I know he would not appreciate it at all. But
If you wanted, you could say it and I'll bleep it out. So,
yeah,
for
sure.
fun.
Uh,
Oh, that's an identifiable name.
yeah, right.
Yeah,
He's a little off the wall. Some people like thought he was a bit odd, a little out there, eccentric, I guess.
kind of like these movies.
Yeah, well, maybe in a different way. He seemed based to me.
Based on what?
Bump. Based on himself. He was based in reality, right? Which a lot of people aren't.
So, yeah, like this movie. So, what
Hmm.
movies had you seen? Obviously, you've seen this one before, but like, did you watch movies in class, or was it just kind of references and you were like, huh, I should look at this?
Oh, we watched a lot of movies in class. I'm not sure which ones out of Wes Anderson's repertoire we watched. Couldn't tell you exactly. I believe we watched the camp one, but I forget the name of it. Um, it wasn't Moonrise
Moonrise
Kingdom.
Kingdom, is that it?
Well,
Oh,
I don't
okay.
think it was Moonrise Kingdom,
I think
but
I think that's the camp one, but I don't know for sure.
ooh, okay. Well,
But yeah, I don't really know. I'm not really a Wes Anderson guy. Like I haven't seen. I actually just watched my first of his live action movies like a week before this, before we're recording, or a week before we recorded last, and you suggested we watch Grand Budapest. So
so you specified live action. Have you seen Fantastic Mr. Fox?
yeah, that's the one I
Okay.
had seen before. I remember liking it, but I don't really remember it. So I'm sure if I went back, I would have a better opinion on it. I remember, you know, when it came out or whatever,
Mhm.
when I was like in high school or right after high school. I remember watching it and liking it, but that was the only one I had seen. So of his, I mean, I see that there's like, I don't know, 12
Mhm.
features of his, it looks like. Which ones have you seen besides this one?
Ooh, I'm not sure actually. Yeah, so I've seen Fantastic Mr. Fox, Moonrise Kingdom, Isle of Dogs, Grand Budapest. Oh, The Royal Tenenbaums, Rushmore, and I think that's it.
Oh, you have seen the Royal Tenenbaums.
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that's the only one that I have seen. Like I said, I just watched it a few weeks ago. But yeah, so I mean, tell me like why you like this director. Not to like show my hand at all.
Um, I mean this is just sort of like I'm not very well versed in film, so it's gonna seem like a really sort of maybe silly
You're
interpretation.
fine. Don't
Um,
don't
I just
couch
wanna
it like that.
put some delimiters on either end. I like the way that he sort of juxtaposes like idyllic scenes with very mm, like melodramatic uh or like idyllic environments with very melodramatic scenes within them, right? So like a lot of his frames deal heavily with symmetry and they'll follow if the camera's going to pan, it's following a specific character. But very often it won't pan, and when it doesn't pan, it's sort of like it shows that they're moving on to the next scene almost, right? So like when they walk off frame, you know that it's okay, they're walking into the next scene. And that could be like a hard cut or it could be like a sort of like smaller cut where they're just somewhere else within the same sort of like environment. And I think he does really well with, I mean, specifically within the Grand Budapest Hotel, right? There's a war going on. It's like very dire circumstances that our characters find themselves within. But the entire time, it's like very pretty almost, right? Like everything is very neatly laid out, even in scenes of like disorder and chaos. It seems like everything has its place and was placed there for a reason, and everything looks nice, which is it's sort of like silly almost to see the contrast. And for the characters themselves, they're all sort of I mean, so in the Grand Budapest, they specifically talk about how, like, M. Gustav, he lives within his own world, right? When in reality, like, all of the characters sort of lived within their own worlds, but they very often bent to sort of meet the needs of M. Gustav, and they sort of let him entertain his sort of version of what they were. It's an interesting way that he sort of bends the world around him to, I'll say, suit his purposes. And then when met with very strict resistance, it crumbles, right? And that only really happens the one time near the end of the film. So before that, he sort of gets away with these delusions. And Wes Anderson does that a lot, where he'll sort of have characters that seem untouchable almost. And so they move throughout the world, and like these set pieces are always sort of available to them, and they fall into place at the correct times. And as that happens, they get this sort of feeling of like untouchability. And then very often he'll have something happen to them. And it can be different degrees of sort of, I don't know, severity that happens to them. But when it happens, it's like a big shock, no matter what it is. And I don't know, I like the way that he deals with life, aging. A lot of times he does coming of age stories or, love stories in this case. I mean, this is also really sort of a story of found family, which I like a lot. He's just a fun little director, and I always think his movies are fun, even if I come away with a very sort of melancholic feeling at the end. It's almost like I miss a time that never existed.
That's interesting. Okay, so wait, you think this movie's a love story and a found family story?
Yeah, oh, I mean, it very much so is, right?
Ha, well, okay, I thought this movie was kind of shallow.
Oh, okay.
So like okay, so I haven't seen. I've gone out of my way to not watch any live action movies of his.
Okay.
Mostly because I kind of feel, and this is like maybe unhinged,
Hmm.
but like it's just kind of a repressed, like emotionally repressed, kind of like hipster, sadcore thing. Like aesthetically, it just seems like uh, this is crazy, but like I feel like there's like it's like pro Anna. I might cut that out,
Oh.
but I just
Hmm.
yeah, it just like everyone in it seems the exact kind of like skinny, I'm a doll, like being used by this director to do the bare minimum of like convey no emotion on my face and try and like let it all come out via mood.
Hmm.
Just like delivering like the kind of quotes you would see on like, Instagram or whatever of like sad, meaningful, kind of like edgy teen or like lonely teen stuff. I just get that vibe. And
Okay.
like it's delivered in this way, all of the like everything I've seen from his filmography up to this point of like quotes and scenes and stills, it's just the neatness of it just feels so, and I'm not the first person to say this, just feels so like style over substance,
Oh,
and
yeah.
also trying to not even trying to like challenge you with that, but to kind of say like with a raised eyebrow, like isn't it more deep that the characters here are blank slates that don't move and don't emote, but they're delivering this like quirky, like removed dialogue, and the situations they're in are so melancholy. I find that insufferable. Um, and that's my problem.
Really stylistically unhinged for sure.
Yeah, yeah, and I get that's the point. Also, his like repertory of actors, I don't, none of like my guys are in these movies. You know what I mean? Like I,
Right, right, right.
like I think of Bill Murray, who I like can't stand. Edward Norton. Like I feel like there's just like a lot of like,
Owen Wilson.
yeah, yeah, like I feel bad. I mean, those people just aren't my people. And so I see these movies that seem to be kind of, again, everyone's making the same facial expressions in these posters, and like everyone is kind of like not classically beautiful in a certain way. Like everyone has quote unquote interesting faces,
Hmm.
but they're still like good looking movie stars, and just like trying to play up the fact that they're like not classically beautiful, but they're still obviously beautiful, and like they're used like dolls. Just something about it kind of gives me the ick.
I'll say even to further that point, the only character in this movie which was sort of like not or like imperfect, right, is Serge X's sister, the club-footed girl, um,
Yeah,
who gets killed, and she's like the only sort of
yeah.
piece of imperfection within the film.
Yeah, I don't even necessarily mean physical imperfection either, because like, right, of course there's like old people and actors who are like I wouldn't necessarily say like, F. Murray Abraham who plays the older Zero, or like whoever, Owen Wilson, right? Like those aren't like people without physical, again, flaws, but they're still like picturesque in a way that I find objectifying. I don't know. I totally understand that this might be very unhinged of a thing to say, but yeah, I find it very off-putting. Kind of like high fashion. Like it gives me like high fashion trying not to be high fashion vibes. And
Okay.
so I haven't seen any of his other movies until I watched The Royal Tenenbaums a couple weeks ago, and I was like, okay, that movie stars Gene Hackman. And Gene Hackman, I like there are several movies of that he's in that I really like. And he's just like an interesting kind of actor from several previous generations. I don't know if you know who Gene Hackman is from the name, but
Now.
yeah, famous like new Hollywood 70s guy. He was in Bonnie and Clyde. He was in like just some movies that you would probably know by name.
Hmm.
Um, but and obviously you know what he looks like from the movie, but he just seemed it's kind of like as if they cast, I don't know, like yeah, just like a craggy old man who isn't like twee, in the way that Bill Murray has aged into. So he's kind of like a famous asshole.
Hmm.
So I was, and in a way that Bill Murray can't compete with, I think.
For sure.
And so I was really interested in that because it's like, okay, here's this, star who doesn't normally seem like somebody who would belong in these movies. And I think that the Royal Tenenbaums, it's better. I think I like it more than Grand Budapest. I don't know if I would say it's better or not, but just because it doesn't feel so cloying, the like aesthetic and like shallowness.
Hmm.
So I like that movie, and I think Gene Hackman does a really good job of kind of grounding it because he's so different than all these like perfect sad doll people. I think Ray Fiennes is really good in this movie, but he does not bring the same kind of groundedness. In fact, he's maybe the most zany character in a way.
Who is Ray Fiennes?
The main actor, the guy who plays Gustav.
Okay. Right. So it he is cloying though. Like his entire personality is cloying almost, even to the fact that like they have a plot point around the perfume that he wears, right? Which is
Yeah,
in itself cloying, right? Like being in his presence is spelling the de parfum, I forget what it was called, whatever it was. It's the first thing he asks for out of jail, right? And it's how the police officers were able to track him, right?
sure.
And I mean, it's like the movie as being superficial comes down to, I mean, at least for this one, and I mean, there maybe isn't as much of an excuse for some of his other films, which he employs the same sort of tactics, but it revolves around a very sort of superficial, cloying man who eventually does sort of get what he wants, right? That's only Gustav's story, right? Like Zero also gets what he wants in a way.
See, I feel like the end of this movie is incredibly sad.
Yeah.
Like, this
Oh, for
isn't a
sure.
movie, I mean, it's a movie about fascism. Yes, they get what they want, and then they immediately have it taken away from them. Like,
Hmm.
Gustav, which I think is kind of narratively fulfilling. If anything, I feel like the ending it's hollow because I don't think it's earned. Like, all of that, like, sudden tragedy. even though I think you can kind of see it coming given the frame stories.
Mhm.
But yeah, I feel like that's maybe the most appropriate given. I can see what this movie's trying to do, in which I don't think it's a love story or a found family story. I feel like it's very much about nostalgia, like you said, and kind of like what's the difference between being nostalgic for an old time and like an old world, like Gustav is, versus like fascism and reactionary politics, right? And so,
Right. So they mention in the film how it uh like Zero at the end says like his world was long gone, right? Like it's from a time long past.
right.
But he managed to keep up the illusion that it was still there, right? And I mean, he really does. And like the film does well in the same way that I think Uncut Gems does, where at least for me, it pulls me into its rhythm, right? And Gustav becomes the this man among men, right? He is like untouchable, right? Up until he isn't, when he's met with the brutal fist of fascism. I mean, like you sort of see it coming, right? Because it happens one time, and you're like, okay, well, that was a not really a fluke, but yeah, a lucky strike, right? And then the leadership changes hands, right? The dictatorship changes over to another. He acts the same way that he always has, but now with a more empowered demeanor, right? No longer is he just a simple concierge, right? He's the owner and proprietor of the hotel. He has all of this money, all of these assets, this vast estate that was granted to him by one of his, correctly stated earlier in the film, like from one of his lecherous adventures with these old women that he preys upon, he inherited an estate. Like to be fair, the family of the older woman who dies is kind of right, right? Like why should he get this? It's I'm not going to say it's just comeuppance what happens to him, but it is narratively fulfilling. Yeah, like you said, it's maybe not right way to end his story, but it definitely feels right. The whole story with like Zero and Agatha, right? Agatha sort of like a linchpin throughout the film. She's almost like I mean, like Agatha is definitely used as a prop, right? Where like, oh, they need to smuggle tools into the prison. Good thing they have
Okay,
Agatha.
pause there, because I feel like that what you just said, she's a prop. Every character in this is a prop, except for the Gustav and maybe Zero, and I'm still not 100% convinced that he's not a prop either.
Okay.
Like this this just feels like, remember this crazy actor? Look at them being a bellhop or like at some other hotel, or like they're like this random person, cast in this 35 character movie. No one here really has an arc except for Gustav. And I feel like the movie really wants you to be like, look at this colorful cast of characters, but none of them feel fleshed out. Like none of these, I mean, none of them feel like anything
Yeah.
approaching real people, which is the point,
Yeah. They're all
maybe.
very
But
hollow,
like,
one-dimensional.
yeah. And so I can't, yeah.
Like
But
the bad guys are just
continue with what
like
you're saying.
very bad guys, right? Like
Yeah.
like the whole family of the woman who passed, like they're the bad guys, like cut and dry, you know. You always see them, and like they continue wearing the funeral attire that they were wearing, the all black throughout the entire film.
Yeah.
Like they're very stylistically the bad guys. It's like laid bare for that.
Yeah. It's like shorthand, like
Yeah.
they're Nazis, which of course, like,
Yeah, the ZZ, like yeah, it's like all right, cool, all right.
yeah, I get that you can't introduce, maybe you could, like actual Nazism into this movie, especially because it's a fictional country anyway, but
Mhm.
something about that, like, wallpapered over analogy also gave me pause of like, you're just kind of using it as a stand-in for ultimate evil and like
Mhm.
reactionary politics, but you're not really like, we got to go back to the past kind of, that like
Return.
thrust of what, yeah, yeah. But I feel like it doesn't go anywhere other than to be like, these are the bad guys, like you're saying, like the archetypical, like, yeah, like all black wearing assassins, which I mean, they're fun to watch to a point. I found myself like really engaged with this movie for the first 30 minutes, and then I was like, I felt like I was watching 2 hours of Looney Tunes. Like, you know how like you could
Yeah.
watch 2 hours of Looney Tunes and you'd be like, this is a great idea. And then after the first, 6 or 7 shorts, you're like, all right, I'm kind of losing steam here.
Mhm.
Even though they're all maybe good or like exciting, Yeah, I just felt like there wasn't really anything kind of going on beneath the surface that you couldn't see from the very beginning.
Hmm.
But I'm still interested. You mentioned that this is a love story, and
Hmm.
I mean, I know that there is a love, whatever, a love story in this, but I didn't really get any sense of like these two love each other or like their love is going to survive in the face of fascism or anything like that. It's just like they fall in love. She's convenient.
Oh well, not Agatha and Zero, Zero and Gustav.
Okay, tell me about this.
So Gustav is like sort of famously known as a philanderer almost, right? Um, like he sort of flirts with pretty much everyone, like even the prison inmates, the guards. He calls them all darling. He always has that sort of front with them. Um,
Yeah, bisexual king.
right, right. He has the front. He has the front with all of the older women that he courts, and he only sort of like lets that down around Zero, and even when he's calling upon the what is it, Society of the Crossed Keys, he's like really sort of official about it, and he's like, oh, like we need to give them something, and he maintains his relationship through all people through the Grand Budapest Hotel. And he does that with Zero for most of the film as well, where Zero is his concierge, his like his personal valet.
Right.
There's only a few times where he sort of breaks that down, like the one where they were sort of like bunked up together, and then like he offers him the deal where he's like, all right, well like we're gonna sell the boy with the what is it, the boy with apple. Again, like it's a very funny sort of juxtaposition where he's like, I will hang it by my bedside and cherish it always. And then like under 30 seconds later, he's like, we need to sell it, all right? Within one
Yeah,
week,
that was funny.
yeah, within one week we need to sell it on the black market. And I feel like he does that a lot, like, and I genuinely laugh at the film pretty often throughout it, right? And maybe I'm just sort of a sucker for the sort of like quick jabs or little jokes that he likes to throw in. And that sort of breaks down a little bit as Gustav is incarcerated. And then when Gustav gets out, he has one of his other moments of like only like real humanity in the film where he insults Zero. And you get to see that like, yeah, I mean he is like, as much as he has this sort of prim properness about him, and he writes poems, and he just almost naturally thinks in prose with how he waxes eloquently all of the time, even immediately after a prison break. He's still a man, and he still gets angry. And then Zero opens up to him, tells him like his story, what really happened to him. And we never get to hear Gustav's story, like his background, anything about him, which is sort of makes sense, right? In his eyes, a concierge is not supposed to reveal anything about themselves. They should be the wall. And it's funny because he says that, and he sort of like nails it into Zero, where it's like you need to be a part of the wall. Like this is what I've taught you. You should be present but not like seen, essentially. When those are the only two real characters in the film. So it's funny that sort of juxtaposition where his job and sort of by extension his nature, since he lets that define him, is to be a part of the environment, to be the one that provides for others. When in reality, or at least within the reality of the film, that's flipped on its head, where it seems as though everything is available to him and he is the only actor within the scene. And I like that. I like that sort of. It's a weird sort of like change between the two, right? Where they're contradicting each other all of the time. What he's saying and his actual actions are very, very different from one another. Like when the one inmate, we assumedly kills the inmate that yells for the guards when they're making the prison break. And he says, "Oh, you wonderful kind man." It's like that is not a wonderful kind man. That is a killer. He just killed someone in front of you, right? Like assumedly, it's off camera, but you hear like a sickening squelch, right?
Yeah. The irony of the dialogue is definitely one of the best parts of the movie, like the humor, the ironic humor, like you're saying, the like patter. It is, I feel like I would like it more if this were like a series of shorts. If they could just make Looney Tunes out of this movie, I feel like yeah, I would like it more just because I I don't know, I guess I just don't find their dynamic that compelling. Even I mean, I hear what you're saying. I don't know. I would rather have characters that don't have to trade off their humanity in that way or trade off on having humanity. I don't know. Yeah. But I hear what you're saying. I can definitely see how this movie is rewatchable for one. And also just like, yeah, something someone can lock into. But yeah, I don't know. I also, part of me is like, is Zero's character kind of racist? I mean, I get that they have him as an immigrant and a refugee for a reason, but then to give him this kind of like sidekick role, I know that he's the one telling the story, but in the main, that's only in the frame story. Really, I mean, he has everything he does is in service of this other plot. I don't know. I would have to think about that, but I just part of that left a bad taste in my mouth too. Like, why is he having to defer, like you said, his even though a lot of it is ironic. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, where he sort of lives his life through Gustav, essentially,
Yeah,
even to
at
the
least
point
for
of
the
like,
first however many.
I mean, throughout the entire film, I mean, really, right?
Right,
Um,
I meant until Gustav is killed, at least. We're
right,
left to assume that
right.
he has more
Spoilers.
agency, now, but yeah, yeah, spoilers for this movie that we've been talking about for 30 minutes now.
I, I mean, point of fact is, even after Gustav is killed, it doesn't really seem like nothing that he does in his life is like otherwise noted. Zero. And even the grave that the girl is visiting, who's reading the book, right?
Yeah, it's by the author. It's not even his,
Oh,
right?
I thought that was
Yeah.
Gustav's because it had the little comb
No.
over. No? Hmm.
No, it's the author in the frame story. Yeah, so like which I did find that interesting that it's like okay, you've got right? The girl walking up to the statue, she's reading the book, and then we start reading the book with the author's point of view, and then the author starts telling the story, and then who he's talking to starts telling the story. I did like that. I thought that was an interesting way of kind of working within the frame or theme of nostalgia and like thinking back on the past and like all of that. I think that's an obvious reading, but I did like that. I liked that I think the aspect ratio changes and the color changes that happen there, those are really cool and fun
Hmm.
and kind of yeah, play into that bit of how the frame story, yeah, just like is about people reflecting or whatnot on the past. But
And on a past that might have not even really existed, right? Um,
yeah, right, that could be mostly embellished. Who knows? I don't know. I don't think Jude Law would ever lie to me if I'm being
right.
honest.
I think
I
that's
can't
sort of
imagine it.
important to keep in mind though when watching the film is that like Zero, our narrator, is not an infallible narrator, and
Yeah.
the ways in which Gustav interacts with the world, again, isn't exactly perhaps accurate, right? Um, and we can really see how much Zero loved, or at least in my eyes, we can see how much Zero loved Gustav. I don't know if I mentioned it earlier when I was talking about how Gustav is a philanderer, but he doesn't come on to Zero. He sort of once he finds Zero and takes him under his wing, and Zero does assume that sort of I'll say backseat to the story. He really is there to enable Gustav to do whatever he must need. But like in a way, right? That's what a bellhop is supposed to do, right? And like that's like they literally just say it in the story. And I think a lot of it, pretty much everything in it in the story is like very much so laid out in exact terms. Like they say it out loud. It's not hidden that this is like a superficial story. Like they say it. I I wouldn't say that there's so much to be gleaned from like anything underneath it. And I mean, we do see that the other hotel concierge, um, they all have their own sidekicks, right? I don't know.
Yeah.
I like
I
that sort of scene. I thought that was cute. I mean, it'd be a nice little 2 minute short where it just cuts between all of them, and it's just like,
It was really funny that it went on so long. Like
right,
that the chain
right,
of
right.
like calls was like six deep by the time they were done. I did like that.
Only for like the original guy to be the one to come pick them up, and it's like, all right,
Right,
well,
right, right, right. Yeah, I guess I hear what you're saying. I don't know. Just given in the context of his whole filmography and how few people of color are in them,
hmm,
and yeah, I don't know. They just kind of in the aesthetic. Like it kind of feels like, oh, do only white people fit in your, you know, like in your little doll movies? I guess I don't know.
Uh,
That's not maybe that's not fair because I haven't seen that many. But it is like if you look up, there's one poster of this movie that's like all the keys, or it's like a bunch of keys.
mhm.
I'm trying to find it here, and it's like all just like 15 white faces and then zero,
Yeah,
and it just kind of puts it into perspective of like, oh,
yeah. Wes Anderson does have very white films, I'll say.
yeah. I don't know. I mean, especially since it's supposed to be like, look at this crazy cast of characters, and then it's like eight of the most obvious white people you would think would be in these types of movies.
Right. Well, I mean,
And mostly men too.
yeah,
They're very
that's
male
true.
movies as well.
I
Yeah. But
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, the only movers and shakers are really Gustav and Zero, and even the most, I'll say, important plot pieces are like also like, I mean, Willem Dafoe, right? He's the main sort of
Yeah.
antagonist.
And he's great. He's
Yeah,
really good.
yeah.
I do like his, yeah.
See, okay, so Willem Dafoe, throughout the entire film, he's essentially untouchable, even in how like he moves throughout the prison. He sort of makes his way throughout the film untouched. And, I mean, until his death, right? Where he's confronted with Zero pushing him off of a cliff. And that's like, that's the point at which, oh, he is actually followable, right? Up until then, he's doing like these Olympic level skiing maneuvers after managing to infiltrate a monastery to kill a guy without anyone noticing. It's like, okay. Which I just think is, I don't know, it's just funny to me. It's interesting. Like that's another scene that I laugh out loud at, right? Because like you see the very clearly like animated cracks forming in the ice.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. They're
but
cute. Yeah.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
definitely a cute scene.
Gustav does his sort of swan song, the last verse that he's going to be able to read out, and then he gets pushed off. And he's like, "Holy fuck, you did it! Get me up there!"
I do really like, yeah, I think Ray Fiennes does a good job of balancing his like, yeah, like twee, aristocratic kind of patter of speech versus like, yeah, he turns into a, sailor mouthed kind of guy. Like, I do think he does a good job of that. He's a good actor, so that's not surprising.
And I mean, it shows the humanity of Gustav, and like those are the only points of humanity that we really see. Even all the way up through the end of the film, we all we ever see of him is the facade that he puts on, right? When you are a part of the hotel, you cannot in any way relay sort of negative emotions. You can't be a person outside of being of service to others.
Yeah. So, but does he have an arc?
Um,
I don't, I feel like he doesn't really have an arc. Like he's willing to the way he dies in the end is exactly the same. He could have died earlier in the film when the exact same thing happened. So like, is there any character growth really? I feel like he's just kind of sent on a wild goose chase. Um, Growth or change even. Like he's not really, even though I do think this is an interesting character, like you said, he is very human compared, especially in contrast to like everything else about this movie. He is very human, but yeah, I feel like he is the same going in as he is coming out. The only change really is that he has this new friend, but that happens so early in the movie that he kind of like they pledge loyalty to each other, right? They like shake hands and stuff. So yeah, I'm kind of like, oh, and maybe that's part of the point is like that, he had no arc, he had no reason to change, he was fine, and then now he's just dead anyway because, the melancholy, blah blah blah. But I don't know. What do you think?
yeah, yeah, it's almost like an anti-hero story where he gets what he wants without really any sacrifice on his own part, and he would have gotten it in the end anyway, pretty much no matter what, right? If we had known him as a child, because obviously like we know what he wanted to be. We get to see that very early on, right? Where he wants to be among he wants to be like one of the people, right? He wants to be among the wealthy. He wants to be somebody. Like they say in Shark Tale, right? Like I want to be up there. I want to be somebody. Um,
I know you didn't just fucking say
wow.
that.
Listen, I got it on my mind, right?
Oh my God.
But it's true. Like he wants to be somebody, and so he's like, well, I'm going to make that happen. however, like whatever it takes, however I have to get there, I will be somebody. But he's still sort of like loyal to his own, a decent human being at the very least. I mean, that doesn't change. His goals don't change throughout the film. How he intends to achieve them doesn't really change. Like he's going to bed as many sort of famous, influential women as he has to, no matter their age, in order to try and secure a bit of financial security for himself. I don't think he expected it to go so far with the main woman who died, but it did, right? And he achieved everything he wanted, and he becomes exactly as they were, right? Superficial,
Yeah,
blonde,
right.
cloying. I mean, maybe it's sort of like dumb jokes to laugh at, I guess, but in my mind, like it is very funny, and this
Yeah.
movie is up until the end really quite funny, quite humorous.
Yeah, I feel like the delivery is what makes it funnier than like the jokes themselves might not
Yeah,
be a hoot and a holler, but they are funny to like yeah, like just their delivery, there's good timing. Obviously everything is heightened by the uh extreme symmetry and like doll like aesthetic and everything. So there is a lot of like physical humor or like framing humor here.
and situational humor. I'm a fan of situational comedy, so
Sitcom fan over here. What if this was a sitcom? Would it be better? I think so.
yeah. I mean, I think it'd be pretty much essentially the same, right? They'd have the same sort of silly little transitions. I don't know where you watched it, but it's free on YouTube, and
Wait, this movie is free on YouTube?
oh yeah, yeah. But the delayed cuts aren't lined up with commercial breaks, like ad breaks. So it'll like play an ad and then it'll like jump back into the movie, which will like be a couple seconds behind, and then it'll be like a really long black pause,
Okay, hey,
which is funny to me.
hold the phone, Joan. W-
Holding the
I
phone.
I need you to send me the link where. Oh, it is free with ads. Fuck. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh yeah.
I'm shocked. I didn't get that on Letterboxd. Didn't tell me that. That's funny.
I just looked it up on Google and I was like, watch movie.
That's what I fucking get. Well, I won't say how I procured this movie. But um, it looked beautiful. But yeah, I can see how the watching it like with the black ad, black screen ads would be tough.
But it's the fact that they weren't lined up that like I got a kick at it out of it every single time because it would like cut in the middle of dialogue and then
Yeah.
it would
Ugh.
like go back into it and I don't know, it's just I get a kick out of
That's
it,
crazy. That would drive me crazy. I could not watch a movie like that.
you know.
I'm fucking serious as a heart attack. I will like sometimes if the like streaming quality, I have too many streaming services. If like the streaming quality is bad on one of them and or like the subtitles are off or anything, I'm like, fuck it. I can't do this. Like I'll get it some other way. I
I'll get my
can't.
fix somewhere else. Like this ain't cutting
Yeah,
it.
honestly, it really bothers me. So, Godspeed. Like if you can handle that, like you're built different because I cannot.
So I'll ask this. It seems like you didn't really enjoy the film.
I gave it 3 out of 5.
Uh,
What? That's my like.
60%. Ugh.
That's not that. No, but I don't grade on like a ABC. Like that's not my.
Oh, so you have like very honest point systems with your stars?
I do have it written out. I've heard people be like, it's lame to have it written out, but I find it helps me in like making sure that my ratings stay consistent. Where I have like my 3.5 is this is solid. My mind isn't blown. Most movies are around here. My 2.5 is like, this isn't really to my taste, but I can see how others like it. And my 3 is like, it's fine. Like, it's fine. And that's kind of how I felt about this movie. Like, I can see that the craft in it is really beautiful. I can see why people really like this movie. But I think the flaws in it are just enough to where I can't really like or love it, or there are parts that I really like, especially like I said in the beginning, and then it just kind of gets tiring. And then toward the end, the ending kind of picks up a bit in the action is a little bit more interesting and such, but it's hollow, at the end because it feels unearned. There's not really a lot of emotion and there's just kind of too much gaggery. I don't know. Like too much trickery, too much too many hijinks. I could do like 15% less hijinks, and I think I would like this movie more.
Mm,
Um, yeah, I guess I just part of the reason too. So like I didn't dislike this movie. Like to
mm.
I'm trying to think of like a movie that I have also given a three stars to. Um, I think I gave the Eraserhead 3 stars, maybe three and a half.
Wow.
So like yeah, I know that when we were talking about that, I ended up maybe talking myself down. I gave Eraserhead 3 stars too. So
Okay. Hmm. Interesting.
yeah, it's my like this movie isn't bad, but I don't really like it kind of rating, I think. Is this your favorite of the ones of his that you've seen?
No, no. Um,
This feels like the totemic one. Like this feels
yeah,
like in the culture, this is definitely the one I
yeah,
see referenced the most.
yeah. When people think of Wes Anderson, they think of the Grand Budapest Hotel. Um,
Yeah,
I don't know. Maybe Rushmore would be my favorite. I'm not sure.
interesting. That's the one that's like nobody talks about. Like no one talks about that one.
That's a really good one. I really like Fantastic Mr. Fox, and Isle of Dogs was also really cool.
See, that's the I'd be interested to rewatch one of to like watch Isle of Dogs or rewatch Fantastic Mr. Fox just because it does seem like he should just obviously be making fucking cartoons. Like this man does not belong. Like don't stop giving this man dolls. Like stop recruiting white people with
Yeah,
angular
yeah.
faces.
I was gonna say, like those movies are the epitome of the problems that you had with this movie.
Yeah, but
Like
like a
it's
cartoon
him
is
playing
different.
with dolls.
Yeah, but like
Yeah, that's
I
true.
can, you look like you belong in a Wes Anderson movie and I don't. And so maybe that's it. Maybe like
What?
you're like this is literally me. Like I feel like you could like slot into this. You kind of look like Wes Anderson if I'm being honest. Like if Wes Anderson had darker hair.
Wait, let me look him up.
And I
Oh
and I know
no.
that I am constantly joking about how we look alike, but
Oh, I
you look
kind of do.
you
Huh.
kind of do. So I feel
Ooh,
like that could
not to
I
dox
just can't
myself. That's a little weird.
yeah, the OPSEC is just getting out of control. I don't know. Yeah, so maybe that's part of it too. Because I'm sure that there's movies where I'm like, wow, they are literally me. And you'd be like, Lane, what the fuck are you talking about? This is The Departed.
But he's so me. So now that you brought up The Departed, I have another Michael
Mhm.
Mann film that I wanted to sort of contrast with this one.
Okay, well, first of all, Michael Mann did not direct The Departed, so
Fuck.
that's a demerit.
Okay.
That's a Scorsese. Come on, you knew that.
Ooh, Scorsese. My bad.
No, but what the are you thinking of Heat? Are you
I
comparing
am
this to
thinking of
Heat?
Heat. One
It's okay.
specific scene. Can you tell me what scene it is?
No, and I'm fascinated by this because I've heard the anecdote before that Wes Anderson says he references Heat in like all of his movies, actually. Like
Hmm.
that he's actually a huge fan of Heat. Did you know this?
I didn't, but I mean it makes sense. And like I haven't seen Heat until recently, so I'd have to go back and rewatch the movies. But yeah, almost definitely, right? Because there's one scene that is like obviously it's like oh this is a Heat reference. I'm surprised you're not calling it out.
No, I was kind of yeah, I mean, I was not in that mindset when I was watching. So yeah, tell me what it is.
So when um when the son of the deceased woman he's chasing Agatha, but then he sees Gustav and Zero, and he pulls out the gun and he starts firing, and then like all the doors start opening and people start firing back and forth, right? And it's supposed to be like a proxy war thing, where it's like, oh, okay, like they
Uh-huh.
were fighting a proxy war. So that's a reference to the Heat scene where they're like downtown right after the bank robbery and spoilers and are just firing off automatic
Spoilers,
weapons at the cops.
spoilers, spoilers. There's a bank robbery in Heat. It's like the one thing that happens in that movie.
Well, all right.
Have
Um,
you ever seen the Jim Gaffigan bit about Heat?
no.
There's like a clip of I forget the exact verbiage, but he's like, "You ever watch a movie but you're too late and so you just want to talk about it?" And like he goes on, he's like, "Hey guys, I just watched Heat." Like it's really funny.
That's how I feel, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's just the fact that A, it goes on for they're all firing on each other. It goes on for like a very long period of time. Like it's
Yeah.
almost comical how long it's firing. And it's also the sound on it is like
That's true. The sound is really intense. Yeah, it's very violent.
Right. It's like the only time that guns are firing in the film.
You know what? Even one of these guys, one of the guys, the last guy who kind of pops his head out of the door even looks like Tom Sizemore. Yeah, okay. I can see this. I can see what you're saying here. Yeah, the gunfires are like really loud too.
It's really jarring, like in the context of the film. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah,
That's
that's
interesting.
that for
Yeah.
me. I thought that was for sure a Heat reference, right?
Yeah, I can see it. And yeah, I have heard that Wes Anderson is a big fan of that movie, of Heat, so
Hmm.
I see that. I can see it.
I mean, and Zero runs through the gunfire to say save someone precious to him, right? He couldn't just turn his back when he felt the heat around the
Well, now you're
corner.
you're you're mixing your scenes from Heat. I don't think Natalie Portman tried to kill herself in this movie.
What?
Do you forget that part of Heat?
Am I oh, what the f no, yeah, no, you're right. My bad.
Yeah. So,
What a pull. My bad.
sorry. Yeah. Well, I didn't want to be like, yeah, Al Pacino says she has got a great ass. Remember when we saw that movie and fucking
New York
that,
in
God, that makes
theaters?
me so mad. That was so awful. Anyway, we don't need to, let's not relitigate Heat right now. Um, Anything else from this movie that you want to shout out? I did like Harvey Keitel in the prison. He's the main bald prison guy. Um, I thought he was
Oh,
interesting.
with the tattoos? Yeah.
Yeah. So like everyone in this movie is so still, and that's kind of his thing. Wes
Hmm.
Anderson's thing is like people just don't move on the screen. Like they're either talking or they're standing still.
Hmm.
There's
Well,
not
that
like a lot
adds
of
to the
business.
symmetry, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's very
I get
idyllic.
that it's a choice.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then you have Harvey Keitel, who's kind of a pretty businessy actor.
Hmm.
So he's like having a really hard time being very still in an interesting way. I found him, yeah, like he's another guy who's like, what the fuck are you doing in this movie?
Hmm.
Like Gene Hackman kind of.
Hmm.
So I liked seeing him. Of all the other kind of cameos or like drop in, quick characters, I really didn't. I gotta be honest, I don't like Tilda Swinton. This is the second time we need to talk about Kevin. We
Oh.
need to talk about Kevin.
Who's Tilda Swinton?
She plays the old lady. She's in like 80 pounds of elderly makeup, like old age
Okay.
makeup. She plays the old lady who dies.
Okay, gotcha.
But she's the mom in We Need to Talk About Kevin, among other
Oh,
things.
wow, I would not have placed her. Yeah.
I That's funny. I placed her fucking immediately. I was like that. There's only one like weird angular white woman that this could be, and but I'm not a huge fan of her acting, and so like I didn't love her scenes. Edward Norton didn't really do anything for me.
Oh, I'm seeing the poster now that you were referencing earlier. Yeah. It is sort of a
Yeah, it's kind of tough. A
a little bit of a
menagerie of
yikes
whites.
moment there. Yeah. Sheesh.
Yeah, love seeing, like I said, Jude Law in anything. Good, uh, good-looking man, but he doesn't really have anything interesting to do. Uh, yeah, I mean, again, none of the other kind of characters like really popped for me. They all kind of just blend together as like one big quirky mess.
Yeah, they are the set, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I don't know. I see. I'd say for the very reasons that you dislike it, it's like almost the exact reasons why I like it. It's all set pieces. The story is like very much so focused on Zero is devoted to Gustav. Gustav is devoted to the Grand Budapest Hotel. Zero becomes devoted to the Grand Budapest Hotel. And then at the very end, he says, "No, I didn't keep it for him. I kept it because me and Agatha had some good times here." And like, I don't know. That's nice.
Yeah.
And it again, that's sort of like it adds to the nostalgia for a time that doesn't exist. Even on the screen, we get to see very little of the time between Zero and Agatha. That's sort of left like as an exercise to the viewer almost. I mean, they had a kid. We know that they spent a good many years together, assumedly, after they were married on screen.
Did they though? Because he said that she died along with their infant child. So like, I mean, maybe they whatever got married and then had a kid later on, but that didn't give like long time of happy life. Like, yeah, I feel like this movie is just a real downer of an ending.
Oh yeah.
We kind of have opposite. Like last week we were like Eraserhead, and I was like, this movie has a happy ending because he aborts the baby. You're like, what the fuck is the matter with
Yeah.
you? And we're like vice versa on this week. But
Yeah. Because I mean, throughout and again, like I said, like it's a film of like maybe contradictions or just funny juxtapositions. Maybe not funny, but interesting juxtapositions, right? Where it's
no, funny, ironic, I
yeah,
guess.
it's a
Yeah.
real happy sort of upbeat film. Despite what's going on, it's a like with the very dark undertones happening throughout it. It's like a film of like
Yeah.
murder and wars, like on the horizon, if and currently happening in the background.
Did you notice that in the prison they're dressed like concentration camp
Yeah, the
prisoners?
striped
Yeah.
pajamas. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, like to a T almost. That kind of I
hmm
was like, ooh, okay, we're getting a little direct here, Wesley.
It
Wesley?
it's a very direct film, and I think Wes Anderson is a very like direct director. But bump.
Yeah.
He he doesn't like pull any punches. There's some meme that I see all the time, and I think it's from like the Tim and Eric show or something, where it's like, I know authors who use subtext, and they're all cowards.
Oh
That's how I
no.
feel about a lot of Wes Anderson films, right? Like,
That's funny. That's not Tim and Eric. That's Garth Marenghi. It's like it's kind of similar in a uh yeah, it's also like a parody kind of show. I don't know, you should watch it. It's interesting. Anyway, it's a quick watch.
okay, I'll
Um,
check it out sometime. But yeah, like a lot of Wes Anderson films, it very much so feels like he is what he wants to say is being said through the characters, not through their actions, but through their literal words. Like, it is being said. The actions are just there to put on a little play for you so that he can have his set pieces be his mouthpiece.
Many
Which,
people are saying.
wow, yeah, I guess. But like, I mean, it's because it's not a very
Yeah,
nuanced take on a not a very nuanced way of conveying information, right?
no, yeah, I think there's something interesting about the way he's doing it, the irony, of the way people like Royal Tenenbaums, this was very obvious. Like, oh, these people are super reserved and like cut off and repressed. And, the way that they're saying these like horrible things or like experiencing these horrible situations, that's the point, is to kind of show like the catharsis at the end of like, oh, like, you know, um, they're really just repressed. And um, like obviously there's more going on underneath the surface and it keeps you maybe curious in a way. But yeah, I guess I just wish that there was something more interesting being said in the interesting delivery, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I mean, it definitely makes sense. And I can understand leaving his films and wanting more, for sure.
Do any of his movies star women? Like star women? I can't think of any. I think Moonrise Kingdom has like it's like a dual lead of like two kids, a guy and a girl, but I
Yeah, it's a coming of age story. It's definitely, I haven't seen it for a little while, but I mean, maybe it was just because of the time during which I watched it, but like that I resonated more with the male character. But it definitely falls into that sort of like, well, this is about the guy,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
like he is the main character, and maybe not so far as to say that like every other character is pawns here, but or like set
Right.
pieces, but to a certain extent, yeah, that does happen a lot.
Yeah.
I don't
And
know.
I don't
Uh,
necessarily like write somebody off for that, but
mhm.
yeah, it's just like I don't know. I don't find what this movie is serving up to be a delicious, succulent meal. So, like I would be interested to see a different kind of, yeah, like something, yeah, something a little less about like nostalgia or like sad. I want a movie that's not so goddamn sad. I don't think of myself as a sad person, so I have a harder time relating, I guess.
And I would say it is a very sad movie. Like the end,
Yeah,
like not just the nostalgia, but like it gut punches you, right? Because you're not really expecting to have that emotional bond with these characters because they're all very one-dimensional. I don't know.
yeah, yeah.
So I mean, I like the film. I say it's a good four, 4.5.
You're
I like it
valid.
a lot, and I like the work that Wes Anderson puts into it. It feels like meticulously directed, where everything was in its place, everything has a place, it's in its place at its time, um, which I enjoy. So,
I, you know, I can see again. I'm glad to have watched it. Like just like I don't feel like this film was vegetables in the same way I felt like Eraserhead was, but yeah, yeah. Not my thing,
very
but
different films, right?
well,
Yeah.
yeah, fucking
Um,
Jesus.
like I wouldn't call this Kino.
Oh, I think this is total. Okay, first off, we're not getting into this, but I do think that this is like cinema. I think this is totally like an important film, even if I don't think it's a film I love or think is perfect or anything. I think it's obviously so important to a ton of people and like kind of cemented, yeah, cemented Wes Anderson is like one of the guys right now. Even though, again, I don't, he's not my guy, but yeah, I think this is Kino. If only we had kept our original podcast name, we could
Yeah, right.
really make the at the end of every episode. Is it Kino?
Is it Kino? I don't
Um,
know. I'd say that if Eraserhead is vegetables in a meal, this is like a light dessert afterwards that leaves you wanting more, right?
yeah,
Where
yeah,
you're a little sad that you had it, right? It's like, well, like it's over. It makes me nostalgic for when I had desserts and like more
yeah.
of them. Um, and in the same way that Mendel's is like a sort of
It's a dessert so pretty you don't want to eat it. I feel that way about this
right,
movie.
a dessert a dessert so pretty you don't even want to cut into it if you're
Yeah,
a prison inspector, right?
yeah,
Um, yeah, but it's also very surface level.
yeah. I don't know. I'm sure there are people who would disagree with us, but
Oh,
that
definitely.
they're not on this podcast, so who cares?
Yeah, right. Fuck 'em.
So what do we want to watch next?
That is a good question. Do we want to resort to one of Lane's mains?
We could do Elaine's mains now that we've done two Rick's picks. Um, oh, it was. I think it was Lane's frames. I think
Ooh,
is what
Lane's
we.
frames. I like that. Okay.
Because mains makes it sound like it's like these are like my
Yeah, you're
canon.
like go-tos. Yeah.
Yeah, and I have a lot of movies that like on this list that I would like to watch, but maybe or have been recommended to me, but I wouldn't call like my films.
Okay.
Um, we're getting into the Christmas season, but I don't have any Christmas movies I like really want to watch.
I mean, for Christmas specifically, Die Hard, obviously.
I'm not fucking watching Die Hard.
Why not?
I don't know, man. I'm not an action
No,
guy. Yeah,
I need a reason. You're not.
I don't really I don't really like a lot of action movies. Like I don't know. I mean, I like The Departed. I like horror movies, but
You like Heat?
Heat's different. Can we stop this? I know that Heat is going to be a cornerstone of this pod, but can we not bring up Heat every single time we
Yeah,
talk about
yeah.
any movie with
All
men in
right,
it?
all
No,
right,
I mean,
all right.
but yeah, I guess we could talk about Die Hard. I don't want to just write movies off, even though I do. Action
Let's
movies just aren't my
go.
thing. Um, but I also part of that too. I also don't want this to just be me ranting about how I don't like movies,
No,
which
that's
is a
fair.
dangerous territory. Like I feel like we could go there really quickly. Every movie that Christopher recommends for this, he's like, I think you'd have some hot takes, which I know is code for you will fucking eviscerate this movie. Which, I'm not afraid of spouting off an uneducated, not thought through opinion and sticking by it. But
Yeah,
yeah,
hell yeah.
I don't think that's interesting, and I don't want to get mad for no reason on podcasts. I want this
All
to be
right, fair.
fun.
I think there's also a certain enjoyment to be had with getting angry.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. Like I said, I love to just spout off takes. I'm no stranger to that. But I do want to watch movies that I think I can say something nice and tender about instead of just like, this movie's anorexia propaganda.
Okay,
Um,
fair.
okay, do we want something more light or something more serious or neither, both?
We could probably go serious, right? Because I guess we should kind of flip-flop week to week, right? Sort of serious and light.
Keep it interesting. Okay. Do you want to go like real serious?
Well, what's your recommendation for real serious?
Have you ever heard of Encendies? Here, I'll
No.
link it to you. It's in that list. It's Denis Villeneuve. Oh, I said that wrong. Denis Villeneuve, who did Dune and Arrival and the sequel to Blade Runner. He's like a pretty famous director. Encendies is like one of his earlier movies. Yeah, I don't know. It's supposed to be pretty good and serious and dark. It's a war movie, or like a dramatic war movie. I think it's about Lebanon. But if that's a little too serious, which I'd understand, we can look at something a little less.
No,
It's
I'm
also
fine with
pretty
this. I
long.
mean, yeah, that's fine. It it looks great.
Okay, yeah. I guess next week then we want to watch Encendies, 2010. I hope I'm saying that right. I think that's the French pronunciation, for Denis Villeneuve. So
Sweet.
cool. I'm excited.
I guess that's what we want to watch.
Boo, bad. I'm gonna slice in
Why?
the outro music. That actually sounded good last time. So
Wow, it's kind
yeah,
of crazy.
yeah. But okay. We'll talk next week.
Cool. And I will
Yay.
not make a on these nuts joke next week. I got it out today. It had to
Thank
happen.
God.
It had to happen eventually. All right. Thanks for listening. Bye. Do 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 do.